Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie podcast. I, as always, am your co-host Brian, and joining me, as always, is your co-host Spaz.
Hello.
And temporarily dropping out of retirement, our podcast co-host emeritus, Hunter.
Hi, what's up, everybody?
Our guest brought Hunter out of retirement because tonight, my friends, we're talking to the one, the only. You love him or you don't. Doesn't matter. Derek Smart. Welcome, Derek. Welcome back, Derek.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you back. We brought you back because you have been doing a lot of work on Universal Combat.
Yes, I have. I have.
So, for those who don't know, let's describe what Universal Combat is. I mean, basically, this whole journey started, what was it, 22 years ago? Recently, you posted a thing.
22 years ago is when it started back in 1989, but 22 years ago is when it was first commercially released.
Right. So, Universal Combat is the culmination of Battle Cruiser and all that before it. Is that
correct? Yeah, it's
okay.
Universal Combat is the spiritual successor to Battlecruiser 3000 AD because the original game itself was basically focused on your battlecruiser, 4 fighters, shuttle, and 4 vehicles. But then for Universal Combat, which came out in 2004, between the first game and that new series, I opened it up so that people could play use any of the assets, any of the capital ships, any of the fighters, shuttles in the game. And I added a first-person perspective. So it was no longer fitting to call it battlecruiser because it was no longer about one capital ship. So I created a new IP and called it Universal Combat because it's, airspace, land, sea, the whole 9 yards, and, first person, and it's universal. So that's how that came about.
And now the one you can buy on Steam, which is the one we're talking about tonight. So, folks, there's the base game, and there's a DLC. What's the name of the DLC? I'm totally blanking.
Delirious Conflict. Let me give you a link here in Green Room. Right. You have the you have the actually, let me just pull this up. You have the base game, which is the what I did was the collector's edition was released back in 2009. That edition was all the Universal Combat games, which contained all the Battlecruiser games. It contained all the Battlecruiser Millennium games because you had Battlecruiser and the Millennium and the Universal Combat. So the collector's edition included all those games in terms of their scenarios and because all the games take place in the same world. So so I decided to take all the scripts, all the scenarios from all the previous games, converted them, tested them, rewrote them to work with the Universal Combat engine, and I threw everything in there, and I called it the Collector's Edition, which was my way of saying there's no way in hell I'm going to make another one of these games ever again. So I threw everything in there, and then the whole Star Citizen came about, Elite Dangerous came around, Infinity Battlescape, all those games, all the whole resurgence, as it were, of the space combat thing started around 2012, 2013, and people started harassing me to do another game, even though I told them it'll be too expensive and I'm too old and I'm bored and I'm cranky and I'm not going to be able to focus on doing it, and nobody's going to give me $10 million to make it anyway, so I'm not going to put $10 million of money into it. So in the end, people kept buying the game, the base game on Steam, which is the link I just provided. And I thought, okay, you know what I'll do? I will improve on the graphics, add some new features, polish a few things, but I'm not going to give you guys a new game. So that is how Delirious Conflict, which is the DLC, which I just gave you a link to, came about. So you can still buy the base game, Universal Combat Collector's Edition. The 2015 version is the special Steam version, contains everything you need. But if you need additional support and new missions and all this new graphics, the visual updates I'm doing, and all the cool stuff that I'm putting in it, here's the change. I think I have the change log here. Yeah, this is all the cool stuff I've put in it since I released the DLC. Then that's what you're buying. But it's the best I could do without having to do a new game from scratch.
Well, there's already so much content in the in Universal Combat, considering that like the campaign missions alone can take a long time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing, and that's a good point because you remember the game it's in itself, and it's the core game is one huge sandbox. You never have to play any of the campaign scenarios because just the basic roam, aka sandbox, aka free flight, it's just an empty script. It's just basically an empty canvas. You just grab a ship, grab your crew, and go wreak havoc. The game's AI takes over and does everything, and you never have to follow any scripted pattern if you don't want to play them. I actually added the instant action scenarios and some of the scripted campaign scenarios because people kept asking for them over the years, because some people like direction, some people like the whole sandbox idea. But in this game you have all three. You can do your sandbox thing, you can do a campaign, or you can just do you know quick instant action, and they're all there.
Right, but if folks want the new stuff, they got to buy the new thing, which is totally fair. I mean, you're putting in actual, like, a lot of hours. I mean, this changelog is like a novel.
Oh yeah, yeah, and yeah, it is. It's a lot, and it's a good point because if you go to the end of that 3.0 changelog and see when I did the first version, and just scroll to the current version, that's like one game just by itself for the amount of work that I put in there. It's just me doing it. There's nobody else doing it, just me, and I've been doing it off and on for the past, since 2016 basically. But the thing with these games is what plagues all developers. For instance, if you take a look at the recent changelog, let's say, for instance, the latest one that I released, not the one on the 26th, let's go to the 16th because that's the massive one. If you scroll all the way down to the 19 release, that was released back in March. So between March and September, you can see the exceptional amount of work that I've put into it just to bring it to this version that I released on September 26th. It's a lot of work, and this is the sort of thing that I kept telling the guys, saying, it's not as simple as just saying I'm going to make a new battlecruiser game or I'm going to make a new universal combat game. There's a lot of work involved with there's some legacy code that needs to be rewritten for modern day computers. There's a lot of visual artwork that needs to be redone so it looks at least semi-decent, and along the way you'll find old bugs that were sitting there that you want to fix, and you fix one bug and all of a sudden 50 more crop up. You have to be very, very careful with how you do these things. So because the majority of this particular DLC is just on that campaign and visual updates, I find that I spent more time, which is what I didn't want to do. I spend so much time cleaning underlining code, legacy code, that I take a look at. I'm like, I can't believe I even wrote that. And I just strip it and rewrite it. It's very hard not to do that. As a creator and a perfectionist, it's a very, very, it's a fine line that it's very easy for you to cross over. And this particular version is that I just released in September 16th is evidence of that, and it's evidence of why I didn't want to do another one of these games, because they're just so massive and time consuming.
So, what's going on with the other games? All aspect.
Oh, I'm not doing anything with those anymore. I mean, the only other game I had in
Oh.
development is Line of Defense. Line of Defense is being ported to Unreal Engine because, as you know, we lost our when Microsoft bought Havoc, we lost our console path, and I spent so much money on that game that I would not be able to recoup my investment on a PC only release in the short term, and it was going to be my last game. So I decided that rather than plod on and release a PC version, we were just going to port it to Unreal Engine 4 so we can regain our PC, Xbox, PS4 path. And of course, it also helps that both Sony and Microsoft had already approved the game like 2 years ago. So while Line of Defense is slowly plodding through that, I decided to do something for my legacy space simmers, because Line of Defense, as you know, is a completely different kind of game. It's nowhere
Yeah.
near the scope
Yeah.
and the feature set of Battlecruiser Universal Combat. I didn't want to leave my old school gamers in the lurch. Not that they'll let me forget about it, but yeah, I thought I'd throw them a bone by doing something for them, because these are the guys who've bought these games so many times over the years, and I felt that I should at least, if I'm going to retire the series, I should at least do as much as I can to leave them with a game that they can, most of those guys still play the old games, and I figure if I do this DLC and improved on the last game from 2009, that it's better than me just quitting cold turkey and say, hey, this is Line of Defense. It's not your kind of game, but tough. So I figure I'll just do them both in tandem, and it's working out okay.
We do have a
So-
question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Hunter. Then we have a question from the audience. Go ahead.
Well, actually, that question from the audience ties into my question.
Oh, all right.
So with Line of Defense and porting that over to the Unreal Engine 4, the mechanics that you have in place with the current version of Line of Defense, how does that port to Unreal Engine 4? Are you finding that it's easier, or are you finding some mechanics are really hard to work with?
Well, it's a graphics engine port. There's only two things. Most of the gameplay aspects don't change, because the Unreal Engine 4 is very, very straightforward, and it's not like Unreal Engine 3, which would have been a serious problem. With UE4, it's mostly 90% of the work is, believe it or not, is in graphics. And the worst thing for us right now is that the Unreal Engine graphics kernel is so much more powerful than the Havoc engine, than the Havoc's engine the graphics engine we have, that it makes our assets look subpar. But good thing is we still have all the high resolution assets which were created. So it's one thing to port to a vastly superior graphics engine, and it's another to update your existing art assets, models, vehicles, aircraft, to look good on that target engine. So that's basically, most of the work is all visual. Anything to do with, of course, networking. We have our own networking stack, so we're not going to touch anything to do with the Unreal Engine 1. But and things like scripting or the game. I mean, the whole game is a huge sandbox anyway. So there really isn't that much of a big difference between going from the Havoc-based Vision engine to Unreal Engine 4. It's just most of the work is in the content itself. But remember, the Line of Defense is it's a completely different kind of game. It's more of a combined arms game than it is a simulation. So it doesn't really need as much in-depth changes for a target engine as you would something that requires an updated neural net or updated AI. It's basically it's just one huge open melee sandbox. We're not going to change anything about that. It's just a matter of taking one graphics engine and taking it from one graphics engine to another, and then start fiddling with all the bugs. I know your question had two parts. I'm not sure if I answered both of them, because I can't see the question. I can't see the questions for some reason.
They're over on Twitch, it looks like here, but my concern was, and I'm nowhere near as a developer like you are, or any other developer for that matter. I've heard that sometimes porting over from one engine to another can be detrimental in terms of trying to figure out certain mechanics or open world mechanics and that kind of nature. So I just wasn't sure, but yeah.
Well, it depends. I mean, you see, the difference is, I give you an example. It's like going from Unity 3D to Unreal Engine 4. It's going to be fraught with a whole bunch of problems. Just ask anybody who's worked with Unreal Engine. They'll tell you that going from UE3 to UE4 itself is a massive headache. And that's because for all intent and purposes, UE3 is very, very different from UE4 in many, many aspects. And that's why there's so many games or, fan projects that are still in UE3 and they haven't bothered to switch to UE4 because it's a significant amount of work. So for us, going from something like Havoc Vision Engine to Unity 3D would have been a huge leap because the scene graph is different. Unity 3D does a whole bunch of things very, very differently. But I chose UE4 instead of Bayard CryEngine because it's very, very similar to the Havoc Vision Engine, which used to be called Trinergy, in many regards. So it was more of a thing about you're not comparing oranges to grapefruit in a sense. You're probably comparing one apple to a different kind of apple. I mean, they're still apples. You have a Granny Apple, Granny Smith, or type of apple. An apple is an apple. So you really just from Havoc Vision Engine to UE4 is one type of apple to a different type of apple. But going from UE3 to UE4 is more like going from an apple to a grapefruit. But then if you go from UE4 to Unity 3D or vice versa, now you're talking apples to coconuts. So it all depends, and also depends on expertise. I mean, somebody who knows Unity 3 in and out is going to be very, very good at helping with the port. Same thing as if you want to port from your game to UE4, you need to get somebody who knows UE4 because it makes things easier. You certainly do not want to be on a learning curve when you are learning to port to a target engine. That never ever ends well. So for us, this the other thing, and you mentioned this, and one of the reasons why I decided not to even port. Anybody who's played All Aspect Warfare and Angle of Attack know that even though it's my same in-house engine, they're more advanced than the Universal Combat engine, and that Universal Combat engine is more advanced than the Battlecruiser engine, but they're all derivative works. It's like a DICE, the different versions of Frostbite. It's the same Frostbite engine, right? But they've used different versions of Frostbite over the years across different Battlefield games. But it's still Frostbite. So it's the same thing. So going from the All Aspect Warfare Angle of Attack engine to Universal Combat engine is a huge leap. For instance, the Planetary technology in Battlecruiser and Universal Combat is fully procedural. There's no way we could do that using the All Aspect Warfare engine because that engine is not procedural. The single planet that those two games take place on is hand created. It's handcrafted. So I could never port it if I wanted to. But what I could do, which is what I am doing, is porting the graphics aspects of the All Aspect Warfare Angle of Attack engine to the Universal Combat CE, because the scene graph is the same. The scene graph, which is what the world is built on, and it determines how it's created, rendered, blah blah blah. It's all the same without changing any of the data sets. I know this is all getting technical and I'm rambling, but
no, keep going. We love technical. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but it's very, very it's one of those things that you just sit down and say you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. And I decided that the shortest route to improving on Universal Combat was to just port it to use the All Aspect Warfare engine, then to port it to a third-party engine that was going to cause more problems and take more time.
Sure, and I mean, all things considered, going to UE4 is probably a better option than the other options that are out there. I'll admit that first. So that's exciting. I'm actually really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where all these engines are designed to make specific kind of games. I mean, the reason why I even licensed, I've written blogs about this before. The reason why I decided to license a third-party engine for the first time to do a game like Night Defense is because it's a different kind of game, and it would have taken more time to create a new engine from scratch for that game, or to build a game from my own legacy engines, which I've built over the years to power Battlecruiser Universal Combat. So it just made sense. And that engine, that we licensed for Line of Defense, wasn't cheap. I had to pay for the engine license up front. I have to pay yearly support costs. And it used to be just the Havoc Vision engine, which was, it used to be the Trinity engine. And then Havoc bought them out. And when Havoc bought them out, they changed the name to Havoc Vision Engine. And then that kind of gave us access to things like Havoc Physics, Havoc AI, and the entire Havoc suite, but at a cost. So I paid it, and all of a sudden, now Line of Defense had this entire suite of Havoc-based engines, as well as the other middleware engines we were using, like Silver Lining for the and Trident for the water, Silver Lining for the clouds and atmospheric effects and things like that. So we were really stuck in that ecosystem. But think about this: if you decide to build a house, let's say you want to build a 4-story hotel, and you spent, for argument's sake, $10 million on a 4-story hotel, and then 2 years in, you find out that the architect, died, went to heaven, and didn't leave you with any plans for it. Now you have to decide: are you going to continue building the 4-story hotel when you're at story number 2? You don't know what the other 2 floors are, or are you going to hire another architect to complete it? So my decision was either finish the game with Havoc Vision and release a PC-only game and lose money in the long term, or just cut my losses, port to a different engine, and continue along the original path of doing the PC, Xbox, and UE4.
You could say that UE4 is a far cry better engine than Crytek.
Oh, well, let's put it this way: UE4 is far more superior. That's there's no comparison. But the 2 engines have their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, not that I'm going to sit down and list every one of them, but there's a reason why a lot more games are made with UE4 than they are by CryEngine, and there's also a reason why a lot of games are made with Unity 3D. Each of the engines have their strengths and weaknesses, but something that cannot be underscored is that an engine is just as good as the person using it. You can have the best engine at your disposal. If you're not experienced enough to use the engine, then you're never going to be able to make the full potential of that engine. That's the reason why you have people who have worked with UE4 or any version of Unreal Engine will stick with it across all their games if they can. And then you have all the experts who use Unity 3D who would never switch to UE4, not only because they prefer it, but because they're now experts at it. So it all depends on the expertise of the team and, what kind of game that they're building. But if anybody asks me right now, if you're going to build a game, what engine should I use? I would just ask you 2 things. 1, the experience of the team. 2, what kind of game are you building? Because that will determine, what engine you choose.
Sure. How far along is the port to UE4?
It's not very far along. I mean, some days are better than, but my thing has always been the same. It's ready when it's ready. Right now, it's not ready, and I think that once I start doing what I always do, release screenshots and release movies and release updates, I think people are going to be really amazed when they see. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut for now, but I think a lot of people are going to be very, very surprised. It's going to look. It's not going to play any differently because it was already playing to my satisfaction, but it's going to look a whole lot different. I mean, the visuals are going to be completely different. It's going to be like night and day, basically. But it's coming across,
Well, that's
it's
good.
it's coming along very nice.
We actually have a question from Twitch about Line of Defense. Derek was selling JPEGs of a DLC for Line of Defense called TAC Packs. Will those be transferred to the Unreal 4 port?
Yeah, those guys are funny. Let me just show you let me just give you a link to what he's talking about before I answer that. Hang on, let me see if I can find it. It's, by the way, it's DLC, just so you know. Hang on, let's see if I can pull it up here and stick in a link for you. Hang on. Yeah, that's is that the one? Yep, that's the one. Let me just give you this link before I explain what he's talking about. Yep, starter kits. That's the one. Let me just. My internet connection is acting weird today.
Somebody else in the comments said you'd think he'd use PNGs as they are far from superior format.
Yeah, hang on. Let me. Yeah, that's. Here we go. Here's a link. Let me put it. Then I can explain. At least that you'll have the you'll have the context. Okay. Here's what they're talking about there. That link.
Oh.
This is what they're talking about. Click on each one of those. If you hover to the left there, first of all, scroll down, and you will see that these are the early access editions. They're not JPEGs. They're really just in-game assets, which are already in the game. And when it first hit early access on Steam, you can call these Commander, Ambassador, and the Mystery versions. You can call those those are like early access, bonus tiers, as it were, for those who jumped in early. Now, if you scroll up to where it's on the left side there, if you click on Tactical Advance, let's say Tactical Advantage Kit Level 1, if you click on that, it'll tell you exactly what's in it. And these are all stuff that's in the game. It's basically just determining what class you want to play. So you can either get this one and get all this crap, or you can pick one of the other three. It goes up to 4. You can mix and match them because the game doesn't force you to play with any item. I mean, just so you know, it's no different from what's happening right now in Fortnite, Destiny, or any other game. So this is how they were all fashioned.
Yeah, it's not like you're charging for loot crates or anything.
No loot crates at all, and all this stuff. And the other thing is, you don't have to buy any of it because the base game itself comes with all the kits you need to start. So you either play. It's similar to, again, Fortnite, Destiny, all those, or Warframe or whatever. You either play and get experience points, just like in Battlecruiser Universal Combat, and get all this stuff, or even in All Aspect Warfare. You either come across these things, you have them, or you just grab them and have them in your inventory right off the bat. They don't give you any edge other than, you're gonna have probably, if the difference between getting a high-powered machine gun and a rifle depends on whether you want to grind or search for it, or just buy it. Yeah, go ahead.
You know what you should do? If you wanted to monetize the crap out of this, just start selling stuff that's not even in the game, though.
Oh,
but
geez.
Charge like $20,000. I'm sure people will buy it if you tell them it'll be in there eventually. Just saying. I mean that could be a great price.
I know where you're going.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Well,
Hunter is decrying a proven strategy that works. No, I'm just sorry.
Yeah, but I'm old fashioned. So old fashioned guys like me we're basically allergic to money. You see, so we would never do that.
And we keep seeing that in these failed Kickstarters over and over and over again.
Speaking of failed Kickstarters, hate to bring it up, but Limit Theory. That got no. Did you see what finally happened?
Yeah. It wasn't surprising. It wasn't surprising. It was sad. I was sad to see it happen, but the writing was on the wall for a while with that one.
Personally, I mean, I just think it's courageous of the guy to just finally take the courage to write that letter and admit the whole thing. That takes a lot, especially considering he had some health stuff he was dealing with for a while, and so I mean,
no, I got nothing. I have no animosity toward him. I mean, I think he did the best he could with the physical and mental resources he had available. And sadly, that wasn't enough. But what are you gonna do? I mean, when you're
at least it came clean about it. I mean,
exactly.
Others. I mean, I'm not making excuses for him, but you and I both know most other failed Kickstarters, they just disappeared and never to be heard from again.
Mandate. Mandate.
I am still disappointed about that one.
Actually, you know what? Now that you guys mention it, let me see if I have it on my phone, because that is one of the games that I've been meaning to look into. Actually, here we go. Let me see.
I did see you had a nice Twitter rant about it a little while back.
I was very upset about that one.
Oh yeah, well a lot of us were. Yeah, we put money into it. It looked like it was going to be fantastic back in 2014 or whatever.
A bunch of people kept reaching out to me and said, "Yeah, it's definitely dead." So I was asking some questions, and everybody talks to me because people know I value confidentiality more than anything else. So everybody tells me everything. So I kept looking into it, asking some questions, making some notes, and once I was convinced it was really dead, that's when I wrote up, what I wrote. And of course, the next thing you know, Limit Theory happens. Here we go. I found my list. These are my Kickstarter games that I still haven't seen yet. Bloom, Abduction, The Mandate, Stomping Land we know is dead. Whatever happened to Universum? I haven't looked in on that one yet.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Wait, Abduction. What was that one?
Abduction. I have no clue. It's actually on. I've completely lost track of that one, but it's sitting right here in my list of games that I funded and I haven't heard from. And of course, I have. Let me see. The ones I recently checked off are.
Abduction wouldn't be the Mist clone that the Cyan guys made, right?
I believe that was it. I think that was it.
Dude, that's been out for a while.
Abduction has been out. Nobody told me. I have it here on my list. So I must go look at my emails then, because I have here Abduction is sitting here. Bloom. Is Akinira out? The one from
I don't think I heard
from
that
McGee.
one.
From McGee.
Don't think I heard
Universum is on early access right now.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been for a while actually.
So we have Universum, The Mandate. You say Abduction is out? What about Bloom? Bloom out? And the other one is Akiniro, Akenerro. That one was done by American McGee. Shiny Horse. I know they were having issues with that one. I'm not. But let's see.
I've backed so many Kickstarters, and the minority of them have come out. A bunch of them are still in. A bunch of them are still in early access, like Pulsar, Lost Colony.
Oh, right. Yep.
But yeah, like Mandate failed, and no. What kills me is like I'm gonna throw a little shade, and I hate to do this, but the the Starflight 3 Fig campaign that just failed. It's like all these other nostalgia-based Kickstarters that they think nostalgia is the only fuel they need. And
you're talking about Starflight 3, huh?
Yeah,
I'm still upset about that.
Oh, I'm so upset. But I mean, there was Conquest 2, there was Nexus 3, there was Red Baron. I can't remember some of the other ones. Those are like the big ones I remember being initially excited about, and then I'm like, because I work in marketing and I watch the Kickstarter. I'm like, what are you guys doing? You haven't updated for a week, guys. This is not how you sell yourselves. So, yeah, Kickstarter is a risk. You're funding someone's dream. You're not pre-ordering a game. You're funding a dream. And we thought we were funding Josh's dream. And it didn't work out, which is a shame. But that's
you know what he's doing though that I think was pretty great is he's taken everything that he's done and he's just putting it out there for anyone to play with.
That's good. Maybe something will come of that.
All of his source code's going out there. He said he doesn't think it's going to do much for anybody, but I mean, you look at what he had already built. If you go back and watch any of his videos, there's enough there that I think someone could easily take it and do something with it, though.
You think so? I don't know.
I mean, not like tomorrow, but like, I mean, I think that given like the last major update that I saw him do over the last year or whatever it was, I think there's enough there that someone could make something from it potentially.
Well, it's not that easy. It's not that easy, especially if it's not by the same person, because the worst thing every developer knows that the worst thing that could ever happen to them is them inheriting. It's usually, fraught with a lot of hassle, a lot of aggravation, and a lot of money. So it's not so it's not that easy. Unfortunately, to just pick something up.
It does kind of amaze me though when we see all these fan communities pick up games that don't exist anymore and emulate them and make them run, like Star Wars Galaxies, like Earth and Beyond, like the folks who took the Free Space 2 source code and have just blown that up. That amazes me. Like,
they turned it into like an MMO essentially.
Almost
with the.
You see, the thing about it is a lot of these things is that, I mean, I'm just going to say it. Most of these projects that pop up is really just about quick money, because anybody who knows anything about software development, especially game development, can take a look at development and say, hey, you're going to need more money to do this, or you're going to make a pitch that has 10 items on it and you actually get money for 2 items. How are you going? What game exactly are you going to be making then? Which is one of the problems which I highlighted in my tweet thread earlier today about Starflight 3. Where if you take a look at their pitch, anybody who knows anything about software development would say, hey, look, I'm not sure how they plan on building that game, with $800,000, because the second bullet point in their pitch, I mean, I'm staring at it, says hand-built planets and star systems to discover, mine, catalog new creatures and traded locals. Well, I can tell you right now that something like Star Control Origins is what they're describing right in Starflight 3. I can tell you right now, it didn't cost $800,000 to do over 2 years. That's insane. So it's the same thing with our favorite game, Star Citizen. When you pitch a certain game for a certain amount of money for a certain period of time, and you deviate from that, now you've changed some very important parameters. Those parameters can be something as unimportant as adding a new planet or adding a new feature. All of a sudden, the controlled environment you had, which had fixed feature set, fixed amount of money, and fixed set of goals, now you've added something random to it, and everybody who's a programmer who does AI or whatever knows that the worst thing you could ever imagine is being subject to chaos theory, because chaos theory means it's completely unpredictable. You just never know. It's like one of those butterfly effect type things.
Are you trying to advertise for Eve now? Because you sound like you're advertising. That's exactly one of their trailers for their game. Oh my god.
that's the thing. When you look at these pitches, it's very easy to determine whether it's just quick money or whether they really intend on, building a game. So, I started looking at the Starfight 3 thing. Because they would get matching funds from the FIG investors, it would be easy for them to get more than 800K. If you look at things like Brian Fargo's games on there, they ask for 2 million. For 1 million, they get 4 million. They ask for 1.5 million, they get 3 million, kind of thing. So I feel that that's probably what they were doing, where they pitched, and we can booth for 800, and they were thinking that with all this celebrity endorsements and all this nostalgia, they would go over the 800K and hit the actual mark, which in my estimation would be $2 to $3 million. But that's the problem. What happens if you need $2 to $3 million, but you ask for 800K, then you get 800K. But you already know that you can't make the game for 800K. What's going to happen is 2 years down the road, there's still no game. 3 years down the road, people start getting nervous. 4 years down the road, hey, now we're in mandate territory, and that's how these things go. So, with FIG, the good thing about FIG is they have all these checks and balances for accountability and how the funding is handed out to developers. But unfortunately, is because of those checks and balances, and because FIG is very selective about the projects they sign, is why you still have games on Indiegogo and Kickstarter that never get finished, because everybody, people trade on, different responsibilities and different desires. I'm never gonna crowdfund another game ever again.
Well, here's a question for you. Someone from the audience wants to know: would you ever sell the Battlecruiser IP? And if so, how much would you sell it for?
Well, no, because I get asked that quite a bit. You'd be surprised. For one thing, selling the IP is not not something that you would just say, hey, yeah, would you be able to sell the IP? The Battlecruiser / Universal Combat IP would entail the trademark, copyright, source code, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, if the price is right. But for me, you guys know that over the years, I've always maintained one specific thing. I do this as a hobby. And luckily for me, that hobby has, has enabled me to keep funding games, and that 10 people still buy. But because I'm a guy who only has because I'm a guy who only needs, 2 people buying my games, I'm perfectly happy with 10 people buying it. So, so selling the IP would be about money. So for that reason alone, I would not be interested in selling any of my IP, because I have no interest in, money sitting at the bank doing nothing. If somebody says, hey, I want to fund the development of your IP to make a movie or to make another game, or I want to buy your technologies to make another game, yes, we can talk about that. But somebody saying, hey, I want to buy the Battlecruiser Universal Combat IP, my first question would be, what are you going to do with it? And
hey, you don't have any, if someone wants to make a movie out of Battlecruiser, you don't have any like space cats in your universe, do you?
No, but I have enough space aliens to actually, you know what? Scratch that. We don't have space cats, but I think these guys, hang on. I think Brian probably knows where I'm going with this, but Brian, don't say anything. Wait for it. Let's hang on. Oh, darn it. Where is it? Hang on. I had it here. Docs. Yep. I think I found it. Is that the one? Yeah, that's the one. Let me give you this link, which might, you probably won't see cats in there, but you would see alienations. Yeah, these guys are doing. Here's a link. These are all the alienations. The visuals are old school 16-bit type crap, but if you scroll down, the closest you're ever going to get to cats are those Empyrean guys. Those guys are just like that first guy down there in the middle. But let's see the closest we can get to a cat. Yeah, I think the closest we can get to a cat would be that Empyrean guy up there.
Yeah, look at that.
I think probably I think that Empyrean guy looks more like a cat, but the Vesperons might be close to a cat. Yeah. So
That's what I was
bottom line
thinking.
is,
I was thinking the
yeah,
Vesperons
yeah,
look
yeah,
like kitties.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think the Vesperons would be a close fit. I mean, I can see somebody totally wearing that bodysuit and doing a cosplay the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
So
just make sure the costumes don't get ruined in production. That's all.
yeah. Anyway, so back to your question, it's a tough one unless somebody's going to do something with the IP. Like they say, hey, I want to license your technology to make a game. Yeah, we can talk, but they're just going to buy the IP just because they want to own it. Yeah, no, I'm not interested in that.
Well, we have another question. Will Derek ever work with another publisher, be they big time publishers or small independent publishers, for your games?
Well, no, because I mean, most of you have read my blogs and my articles. I mean, I wrote a Gamma Sutra article I linked it a few months ago where I was saying that digital distribution was the way to go. I'll see if I can find the link, but it was an article that I written where I had said that, with once digital distribution, takes off, all bets are off, and that there'll be really no need for indies like us to have to do publishers. That's why my last game, which was the original Universal Combat in 2004, was done with Dreamcatcher, who are now no longer in business. I had sworn that was my last publishing deal ever because you only need publishers for three things: money, support, and commercial release. Indies have been able to get all those things since the early 2000s. I mean, that's why there's so many indie games out. I mean, there's so many indie developers who, especially when mobile kind of kicked off, we were able to do all those three things and make a decent living from it. But where it is right now, I'm even on the PlayStation and on and and Sony PlayStation side of things and Microsoft Xbox, um, you really don't need a publisher, um, because if you can do the marketing, you're good. You can do the outreach, you're good, and of course, you don't need funding. You don't need a publisher. I mean, right now, this day and age, the only thing you need a publisher for is the same things you always need them for in the beginning: money, um, support, and and commercial release. But with now that the digital distribution thing is just as big as the old school, store shelves, um, kind of thing. Um, Steam is convoluted. You have GOG, you have Green Man Gaming, um, GameStop's. There's gone the way of the dodo, but the bottom line is Steam is like CompUSA, Best Buy, Walmart, Sam's all rolled into one. Discovery is a huge problem. So you can't just throw the days where you can just throw your game on Steam and hope for the best. I mean, those days are completely gone. So you
Long,
still have
long,
you still
long gone. Yeah. Oh my
yeah, you still
God.
have to market, do the outreach, and that's where publishers come in because it doesn't matter how good your game is. If people don't know about it, you're not going to make money from it. You know, but would I do a publishing deal again? No, not at all. Because my thing is always that if I can do something by myself, I don't need to pay somebody else to do it. Nothing to do with the bad experiences I've had with publishers. It's just that I don't have a need for them right away. I mean, for instance, with Algernon, I mean, I brought in to finish that project back in 2000. You guys know the fantasy MMO game. I took that over and we got it completed. And I didn't even ask for any money. I just asked for a piece of the action. And we got that game finished in an expansion pack. Didn't even need a publisher for any of that. And then late last year, I bought it outright. I bought the majority investors out, so now I own the game, I own the company, blah blah blah. And since that time, now we're in the process of moving it from hardware servers to cloud servers, and hoping to release it worldwide so I can get my investment out. You need publishers for that because releasing a fantasy MMO game in territories where you've never been before, like in Asia or MENA, or you need a publisher. You just cannot release a game in China or Korea or the Middle East or Russia or wherever, CIS territories, without a publisher. So yes, you would need a publisher, but because some of these publishing deals themselves are so badly written, you may as well just sell territorial rights for a lot of cash up front, and then forget about getting any more money at all. So in deals like that, yeah, I would do a publisher. I would say, hey, yeah, so you want to release my game in this territory, that territory, this territory, fine. You pay me this, and this, and anything you generate above this amount, you give me a cut. That's it. So even if you end up with a situation where you say, fine, I'll take $5 million up front, give me 30 cents on the dollar, anything above $5 million, you can pretty much just say $5 million is all you're going to get, because there's a very good chance you're never going to see another penny. So those are the kind of publishing deals that I would end up doing, not something that I would do because I expect them to hold up their, financial end of the bargain. But when it comes to my territory here in the U.S., I have zero need or interest in working with a publisher.
Well, that makes sense. And if you don't need to, you don't need to. I mean, there's some really good publishers out there that I see smaller indie dev studios going with, and they can definitely use the help, because marketing is such a different beast from developing, as you know.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The thing though with marketing is, I mean, nowadays there's so many ways you can market a product, but the problem with that is there's too much noise. The fact that anybody can, any team or anybody can put a really, really good game together means that you have to spend a lot of time, money, and effort to rise above the noise. And a lot of people have this misconception that the amount of marketing you throw against something guarantees success. It really doesn't. I mean, you can still fund a game for $2 million and spend $1 million marketing it, and you still don't make any money on it. But it's been the formula forever. Publishers still do it, where they spend an exceptional amount of money on marketing a game. So if they're looking to make, let's say 50 cents on the dollar, they would much rather allocate 10 cents of that up front on marketing and hope to recoup it. But publishers with deep pockets can afford to do that. Can you imagine an indie developer scraping together $500,000 on crowdfunding, or selling his mom's house or his underwear,
No.
and going and spend $250,000 on marketing? I mean, like, they would be laughing so hard. So that's the thing, and that's the reason why some of these indie games end up being breakout games, because they come out of nowhere, and go like, wow, I can't believe, I made money back on this thing. Because most of the indie devs who don't really expect to make money beyond their initial investment. Any indie developer who makes their money back on the original game is praising the stars that it lives to fight another day. If you turn a profit, then you've done something right. But most games fail.
Yeah.
Take it from me, I've done 19 of them. Most games fail. And my formula has always been that, Brian, this, if I have 10 people buying my games, I'm going to keep making games with 10 people. I don't care about 12 people, because trying to go after 12 people, it's those 2 people that will end up making you lose part of the 10 who were buying your games to begin with. That's why I kept making games with the same people over and over again, because I've always been able to rely on them, to be there.
And
that's why I've never. Yeah.
And that is so important, to have that core audience that you can rely on to buy your product. I think a lot of indie games crash and burn before they even get to that point, which is a real shame.
Yeah, but the other thing about that is, when you look at, guys like Brian Fargo. Brian and I go way, way back from when he founded Interplay, and they released, Battlecruiser version 2.0. I mean, anytime those guys release a game, I mean, Brian has enough money, he can fund any games. But any businessman will tell you, if you can use somebody else's money, do it. Why use yours, So Brian Fargo can pretty much fund any game he wants, but he knows that if he goes to his install base, guys like us, and say, "Hey, I want to make another game. Um, give me 1 million." People are gonna be falling over themselves trying to give him $4 million because they know he's deliver. You cannot put a price tag on goodwill. This is what a lot of the new guys don't seem to understand. Nostalgia is good and is good and all, but once you establish that credibility with your base, it's pretty much a license to print money if you continue to deliver. You just cannot you just cannot underestimate the power of loyalty. So it doesn't matter whether somebody gives you money for a game they're never going to play. They're just happy to give you money because they know you will deliver, and they can be a part of something.
Let me ask you this then. I'm just going to be blunt about this one. So we've kind of alluded to a little of the Star Citizen thing, but like how then does that work in a community where they only sort of deliver part of the time, but yet people are willing to be whales and shell out so much money?
Well, that's more of a psychological problem than it is a logical one. I mean, you can never underestimate the power of sunk cost fallacy. Sunk cost fallacy basically is what every single whale in Star Citizen is going through, because aside from trying to prove Derek Smart wrong, I mean, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Is that they? I mean, I never saw a hill I didn't want to die on. So I'm completely amazed at people who always try to prove me wrong and repeatedly fail at it. But I digress. The point I'm making is that those guys. I mean, I don't knock people for how they spend their money, but the bottom line is there's a reason why you have things like sunk cost fallacy. There's a reason why you have things like going concern as a valid business accounting term. If you cannot throw money at a problem and expect different results if you don't change something. Okay, Star Citizen has been a train wreck since 2015. Nothing has changed. The train has been on track. Why these people feel that throwing money at a train that's completely off the rails is somehow going to magically put it back on track when nothing else has changed is completely beyond me. It just means that they're stuck in sunk cost fallacy because nothing. You know why? As much as I hate to do it, I'm going to use Elon Musk as an example. You know why short sellers make so much money on Tesla? It's because they trade on the ego and the angst that Elon Musk portrays. The ego, the arrogance, the angst, the whole 9 yards. So this is the reason why anytime he says something, tweets something, Tesla does something, somebody makes money by shorting their stock. Okay, so these are the things. These are how you can actually gauge. It's like selling pork bellies or whatever. You can actually people make money from your highs. People make money from your lows. Sometimes the people betting on the lows make a lot more money than those betting on the highs. So it's all about the cult of personality. When you find an issue where somebody is on a specific track and nothing about that track has changed, but you keep giving them money, what's going to happen? One of two things has to happen. They either succeed or they fail. So when Elon Musk says something and something goes sideways, the stock goes up or it goes down. SEC says, hey, we're charging with fraud. Boom, stock goes down. Short sellers rejoice. Oh, Elon Musk has now settled with the SEC. Boom, investors are happy. Stock goes up. Short sellers start crying. It's that seesaw of personality. So Star Citizen is like that because for a time, I mean, they don't do it anymore. For a time, they were actually using me as their stock guidance, whereby the more stuff I wrote, the more they gave Star Citizen money because somehow, I don't ask me how they came to this conclusion. These are not rational people we're talking about. Somehow they felt that throwing money at Star Citizen would somehow lead them to success, thus proving me wrong. But nothing has changed. When I kept saying back since 2015, you guys, hey, you need to seek accountability for this money. If you don't seek accountability for this money and you don't know how he's going to spend, then you're not paying for a game anymore. You're paying to belong to something you hope will, turn out right. And in 3 years, not much, not much has changed. So it's basically the same thing. You're either funding something, you're either putting money into a crowdfunded game, you expect a game back, or you're crowdfunding an idea without any expectations of getting something back. And I think at this point, anybody still giving money to Star Citizen doesn't really expect to get anything back other than what they currently have.
Yeah, they just want to be They just want to be part of that conversation. They just want to
exactly, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they just want to be part of that conversation. They're part of a community. It's no different from us being back in the old days. We all used to be on Usenet. We used to be on AOL, CompuServe. We're part of a community. We were fuss, fight, rave, rant, the whole 9 yards. Because it doesn't matter. Nobody was sending death threats. Nobody was going to somebody's house and shooting them and all this stuff. We were all friends, even though we all had different opinions, right? For the most part, most of us are friends. We all knew each other. We would fuss, fight, disagree, and all. We all belonged to a group, to a club, to a cult, as it were. But the whole thing with crowdfunding is, people who don't pay attention are those who don't care about the money. I mean, there's you $35. Let's say you can. Let me go small. You can go to a $20 movie in IMAX, and it still sucks. I mean, you're not gonna go back and watch the movie and pay another $20 hoping the movie is going to be better. I mean, that's madness. But that's basically how I see Star Citizen. Somebody put $60. Somebody put $60 in it, and in 3 years, not much has changed. They put another $60 because they think something any day now, something different is going to change. It's a losing. It's not a winning solution. And guess what? When you do that, you completely strip away any accountability. There's no need. There's no longer a goal. Because tell you what, the worst nightmare for any business is an investor with deep pockets. I mean, look at Amazon. If you know how many years Amazon and Bezos he just stuck with it. He goes, look, this is the path. We're going to do this. And look where Amazon is today. And a lot of investors who were bare on that, made out like bandits. You have, and unfortunately, when you the difference between Amazon and Star Citizen is Amazon consistently produces. There's always something new. There's always a new direction. There's always something that adds value to investor money. But Star Citizen doesn't, or any crowdfunded game, let's forget about Star Citizen. Crowdfunded games are for a specific thing. You pay $60, you want a game back. Whether the game is worth $60 is immaterial. You've already paid $60 for it. It's not like you go to a store or you go download a game right now for $20 on Steam. You play for less than 15 or 30 minutes. You get a refund. You move on. When you fund a crowdfunded game, you're taking a huge risk. And when you keep putting money in it, that's no longer taking a risk. That's being stupid. And that's really the part that a lot of people don't understand, that it's more about sunk cost fallacy and the need to belong to something than about wanting to see a product be a reality.
Wow, that's great.
Well, on that note,
and there's nothing wrong with that,
No,
I don't know about you. I mean, guys, I don't do the strip clubs or beer drinking, all this stuff. I mean, people can go to a strip club and spend $1,000. You can go on vacation and spend $2,000. This is the same guys who think, throwing $1,000 at something they believe in is worth it. So, who are we to judge, to each his own. But, it's their money. They can do what they want to do with it. But what really gets me about Star Citizen community is not that they're throwing money at the failed venture, is that they are arguably so incensed about people telling them they're doing something stupid that the whole community is just so toxic because nobody wants to be told that they're wrong or that they've made a bad decision. So, they tend to lash out. I mean, we're gamers. Drama's in our DNA. We fuss and fight, 24/7. So it's nothing new. And that's really the sad part of it, because when you look, I know a lot of Star Citizen fans who are really great guys. They pay this. I know a guy who's a very good friend of mine who's got $1,500 in Star Citizen. I laugh at him every single day, and he's an Evil County member. I laugh at him every single chance that I get, but he's still my friend. I don't judge him, I don't judge him at all. But it's something he believes in. He doesn't believe he's ever going to game, because he's been putting money in it since 2012 when we all started. But it's something he thinks, that he says, I know I haven't got my $1,500 whatever out of the game yet, but this is something that I thought I wanted to do. I could have gone hiking and lost my phone or lost my gear, and I would still replace it. I wouldn't be crying about it 24/7. And my response usually is, dude, it's a game.
I think that's probably the most level-headed approach to this whole thing that I've ever heard.
Well, thank you.
I mean, yeah. and that's not like, I don't think I've ever really approached it in such a way that made me think about it from the other side, right? Like that. It's pretty clever.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best way to, you see. I mean, we laugh at those guys all day. Again, drama's in our DNA. We will never, ever, ever sacrifice or pass up on the chance to laugh at something, no matter how ridiculous it is. So, but we're all gamers, and we're all part of the same group of like-minded gamers. But everything with society, you have good actors, you have bad actors. So even though we laugh at them or we make fun of them, these are our friends and colleagues and family members, and they all have their own thought process. $1,000 to somebody is $30 to somebody else. Someone like me who I funded, like, kid you not, I have a list. I funded like 20 games of crowdfunded. As you guys know, I don't even know half of them. I didn't fund them because I wanted to play them. I funded them because I knew the guys who were developing them, and it was my way of giving back. So when I funded games like Bloom, Mandate, and Canary, and all the ones I don't even follow, when I put that money up, I said, you know what? I'm supporting some guys I know. I'm supporting a game idea. If it makes it, fine. Doesn't make it, fine. Same thing with Star Citizen. I gave them, $150 in 2012. I lost interest until 2015, when people I know who worked on it start telling me, hey, dude, this is a train wreck, blah, blah, blah. Take a look at it. Same thing that just happened recently with, with this other game. I fund something. People know that I fund it, and I lose track of it. I move on. I don't babysit it. And then, somebody says, hey, by the way, maybe you should take a look, and something's going on with this game. And you go and look and go, oh, wait, I did fund this. Where are they now? And you go, oh my God, they're never going to. It's like that. So, I mean, I have like $2,000 or more spread across different games and that I've crowdfunded, and most of them haven't been released, or some of them have been released. I never played them. I mean, to this day, I haven't played Shrouds of the Avatar, and I was one of the original funders. I haven't played it. I haven't played Bard's Tale 4. So many games I've funded, but I haven't played them. So it's the same. It's the same way I look at the guys, the genuine gamers who are backers of Star Citizen. They backed an idea, they backed a dream, they want to support it. Nothing wrong with that. They're okay knowing that a game may or may not come out of it. They're okay with that. But then you have all the bad actors, on the other side of the fence, who just, I don't even want to go there. But it's gaming. But the bottom line is, it's their money. They can do what they want to do. But my biggest thing with Star Citizen is that it's the number one crowdfunded success of anything ever, and it really shouldn't have failed, because its failing sets a very, very bad precedent all on its own. The fact that it's gaming makes it worse. And for me, But my personal side of thing, the fact that it's a game in a genre that I've spent 3 decades in is a little too close to home. So of course I take a very keen interest in it. Some people don't seem to understand that, but it's the people who don't know my history don't understand how a genre that I spent 3 decades on, that I focus on everybody. It's just like Brian, who's been the torchbearer of these games. Nobody else is doing what he does over the years, because for all intents and purposes, no matter how many fans Star Citizen has, or no matter how many fans Elite Dangerous has, or X, all these games, there really isn't a media type community around our favorite genre. So people wonder, oh, I'm obsessed with Star Citizen. I wanted to see it fail. I mean, they keep forgetting that I funded the thing from day one. I'm an original backer of the game. So, and because it's so big, and because its failure is going to not only impact crowdfunding, which it already has, and if you go back and take a look at most of the space games, that came out during where it got into funding, during that same period of time, the 2012, 2013, games like The Mandate, and all the other ones that came out. Only Elite Dangerous came out. Battlespace Infinity isn't out. Dual Universe isn't out. So imagine what's going to happen when everybody comes to the realization that, by the way, hey, there's a very good chance Star Citizen isn't going to make it. It's gonna have a huge ripple effect, clear across the genre, and that's where it's close for me. Sorry, it's just too close to home.
Sure, I would venture to say though that the two of those games that you mentioned are probably farther along and closer to coming out than Star Citizen is.
Agreed, absolutely agreed. And that's the point I was making. That say it fails. Let's say those two games come out. Let's say Dual Universe comes out. Infinity Battlespace comes out. Not that, I mean, yeah, they will come out because they're more focused games. They're more indies who have a lot more to lose, and they don't have people throwing money at them. And we know hopefully they're not going anywhere. But Infinity Battlespace has been in development for actually quite long,
10 years at least. Yeah,
quite longer than I was on the original Battlecruiser. So I can relate. And remember, I had to build all my stuff from scratch. Imagine that you take that long to make a game of that type in this particular day and age, and it's a huge undertaking. So even if those two come out, it doesn't really matter, win, lose, or draw, what state Star Citizen is when everybody decides, yep, we've come this far and no more. It's going to have a huge ripple effect. I mean, look at Elite Dangerous. I mean, Elite Dangerous is already petered out. It's got its own drama going on, but and they've been improving on it and taking a few steps forward, a few steps back with the DLC, and continue to cultivate the install base, just like Eve, and just like any other game that has a community around it. And that's the same thing with Star Citizen, except they still don't have a game that's 4 years late, and I don't know, over 100 million over budget. Well, no, 100. It's now 200 million. So it's basically over 195 million dollars over budget. That should make your heart skip a beat when you think about it. They wanted 5 million to make a game. They've now got 200 million. They still haven't even made the original game. That should make you pause and say, why are people still giving them money? And what would the guys at Infinity Battlespace or Dual Universe do if they had, let's say, $50 million? I mean, just think about that. This is the impact and the effect that it would have, not just in gaming, but also in our genre. It's just one of those, and the whales look at it as too big to fail. But sometimes you have to cut bait. I don't know. Don't know.
Yeah. Well, we should wrap it up. Been going a while. So right now, folks, you can buy Universal Combat and its DLC, Delirious Conflict, right?
Yep.
That's what's
Yeah,
called.
it's on sale. You can basically get the whole thing for
Whole kit and caboodle. And Derek is still working on it. Last question, how much work would you say you have left on it? Do you have any kind of estimation?
Oh yeah, I do. I have a lot of work left on it.
Okay.
I would say, let me think. Because right now the biggest push, you're still playing, Brian. Let me see if I can go to my screen. Brian, are you playing the latest version?
I'm not playing it right now. That's a pre-recorded video I took about
That's
2 hours
that's
ago.
the video you took. That's the video you made. No. Okay, what I was saying is that the latest version I just released has all the I gave you a link of the screenshots earlier, which has I'm really focused on adding all the new content. I expect to get all the new content added in by the end of October. From that point on, it's a matter of doing other graphics tweaks and improving on some of the visual aspects of the terrain textures, because the planetary terrain is procedure generated, so I don't really have to do much work on that, just basically improve on the textures, some of the lighting. But the work I'm doing right now is the bulk of it is mostly all content. So I would say maybe another, I don't know, 6 months or so, I'd be able to say, yeah, this is done and out. And the reason why I want to get it done within the next 4 to 6 months is because the next DLC I want to do is to add back multiplayer. Because if you recall, the game had multiplayer in the original 2004 version.
God, right. I forgot about that.
Yes. And we had multiplayer. The reason, and this is going to sound funny, the reason I disabled multiplayer in the collector's edition and indeed the Lyria's conflict is because, one, it's a serious amount of work. Gamers expect more and better multiplayer now than ever before. And we created some groundbreaking multiplayer technology for line of defense. So I figured rather than wasting my time putting in the old multiplayer engine back, which is basically an engine all by itself, there's not too much work to. Right now I could put multiplayer back, the original multiplayer back in about a week's work. But then I'm going to be getting all kinds of reports. Oh, I'm seeing ghost items or lag or ping and all this nonsense because the game is much bigger now. So adding multiplayer is not the issue, but I decided rather than go back and add the old multiplayer engine, tweak it, beef it up to match the current game, I'd rather just finish the game first, see how it goes with the DLC. If those suckers don't buy it, I'm not making another DLC. It's as simple as that. I mean, somebody has to pay. So the good thing is they've always paid for the game, so I expect that the DLC will pay for itself. And by the time I release that, I'm thinking within the next 4 months, just before I finish the DLC and say, hey, it's out of early access, I would put up the new DLC that adds multiplayer using the line of defense multiplayer engine, which is vastly more superior. And what that will do is it'll give you not an MMO. I have no intentions of making an MMO version of Universal Combat. What it'll give you is at least 64 to 128 player session-based multiplayer game in Universal Combat, similar to what we currently have in Angle of Attack and All Aspect Warfare. The built-in server browser, ability to host and play on the same session on your own machine, or the ability to set up dedicated servers. All the stuff I've already done in previous games, but with a better multiplayer engine. So once the Lyria's conflict is done within the next 46 months, the next DLC will be multiplayer, and then the next DLC after that, provided I'm, still interested in doing it, will be to add the first person, aka space legs, inside the capital ships, inside the stations, which is exactly what we have in line of defense. So you'll be able to start like you're playing right now. You can start the game. You won't be starting in a 2D screen. You'll be starting it inside the 3D bridge of your game and be flying it through the game world just the same way you can in Line of Defense. So that'll be my my third DLC, but I still have big plans because I never intend on doing another game like this again. So improving on it piece by piece via DLCs, I think, is the best way to go, and bite-sized chunks, as it were.
That sounds awesome. So, folks, go pick that up on Steam. It's really still one of the most expansive and detailed space sims you can buy. There are very few games that even come close, and they were made 20-some years ago. I mean, rules of engagement, Starfleet 2.
Starfleet.
That's
no exaggeration.
That's about it. Those are the only games.
Read the manual.
Yeah,
Read
no.
the manual, no exaggeration.
No.
Please
Manuals.
do yourself a favor.
Plural.
Before you
Manuals.
leave a review, read the manual.
Manuals. There are plural manuals.
Just try the demo. The demo is on Steam too. Just try the demo.
There's a demo.
Or just download the free Universal Combat. The base game is free. I released few years ago. It's an older game, but it's still out there. It's still free. The 2004 Universal Combat game I released it for free a couple of years back.
It's an older game, sir, but it checks out.
Yeah. So you can still play. You can still play that.
So just a couple of quick programming notes before we wrap up. This Thursday on the LAN party, my friends, we are going to be returning to a favorite of ours, Deep Rock Galactic. Since the last time we played, it has had numerous updates. So I am super excited to return to that. And then next week, we're very excited to have a guest who just released an early access game called Noble Armada, but he also worked on the classic Emperor of the Fading Suns. Andrew Greenberg, the guy who pretty much created the entire Fading Suns universe, is our guest next week, which is super exciting because if you all know me, you know how much I love Emperor of the Fading Suns, like a lot. So Derek, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and I know I'm very excited to see how Universal Combat ends up once you're done with it. And it's all stable and with multiplayer and all that stuff. It's gonna be fun multiplayer. I completely forgot about the multiplayer.
Yeah, I know you did.
I was anti-multiplayer when that was a thing. So, that was that's why I forgot. But now I'm dying to try it. But folks, thank you so much for watching and listening, and we will see you next week. Have a great night. Bye bye.